am 52 years old. It is a strange liminal age, when you are no longer young enough to be reckless without a second thought, yet not quite old enough to be ignored in a crowded room. In this window, a woman often becomes transparent. You gradually stop being an individual and turn into a collection of useful functions. I am the one who always knows what to serve for dinner. The one who remembers which drawer holds her husband's clean socks. The one who sends out birthday cards on time and ensures the bills are paid. My suburban home became my monument. I polished it for years, turning it into a temple of perfect order. Impeccably white curtains, washed more often than they could gather dust. The eternal slightly cloying scent of lavender fabric softener embedded in the furniture. And the silence. A thick, heavy silence that sometimes frightened me. There were moments when the house grew so quiet that I felt I could physically hear the sound of dust motes settling onto the mirrored surface of the oak dining table. That table had seen hundreds of meals, but for the last 10 years, not a single word had been spoken across it that could stir the soul. My husband, Arthur, is a man of habit. Our life together was like a set of tracks. No jolts, no turns, just the steady rhythmic hum of wheels. We lived for 30 years in what others called peace and harmony. But to be honest, that peace was merely a total absence of conflict. We stopped arguing because we had stopped being interested in what was happening inside one another. Our marriage had become a perfectly tuned mechanism. It ran without a hitch and required no maintenance, but unfortunately, it no longer provided warmth. I became a master at suppressing every impulse. It happened automatically by instinct. A sudden urge to pull out an old easel and start painting? No time, Diana, guests are coming tomorrow. The silver needs polishing. A desire to bolt to the ocean alone just to sit on the cold sand? Don't be silly, what would the neighbors say? Arthur wouldn't like it. Over 3 decades, I had packed my true desires so tightly into heavy boxes, and pushed them so far into the dark attic of my mind that I had almost forgotten what they looked like. I was absolutely certain my script had been written to the very end. Grandchildren, gardening, quiet evenings in front of the TV, a slow fading away. That Friday began like any other. The heat was grueling, typical June, when the air shimmers over the asphalt and the sky looks bleached by the sun. Even the birds in my perfect garden had fallen silent, hiding in the shade of the ancient oaks. I stood in my straw hat, watering the hydrangeas and watching the water droplets glisten on the petals, when my phone, left on a bench, vibrated. It was Rachel, my polar opposite, my personal whirlwind. We had been friends since university, and I always marveled at how one person could contain so much life and chaos. She changed jobs, husbands, and cities while I built my fortress. But we remained close. Her voice trembled with panic. Her father's heart had failed, and she was already on the highway racing to Tallahassee. Ethan, her son, who was just about to turn 18, couldn't go with her. Diana, I beg you, let him stay with you for a few days. He's quiet, you won't even notice him, she pleaded. I remembered Ethan as a small, scrawny boy who could sit in a corner with a pencil for hours, living in his own world. But when an old pickup truck pulled up to my house that evening, a man stepped out. Or rather, someone on the very edge of manhood. Ethan had grown tall and broad-shouldered, with a mane of unruly hair, but now there was a predatory confidence in his movements. When he greeted me by name, his voice, low and velvety, echoed somewhere deep in my chest. He smiled, and in his gaze was the interest of an explorer who had found a rare treasure where everyone else saw only a barren, empty cliff. The evening passed in conversations that were shockingly unfamiliar to me. Ethan didn't ask about the weather. He asked what I felt when I looked at flowers. I found myself telling him about my dream of becoming an artist, buried 30 years ago. He asked why I stopped. I told him it was impractical. His quiet question, "Is it impractical to be yourself?" pierced through me like a needle. That night I couldn't sleep for a long time. I stepped out onto the terrace, where Ethan sat in the shadows watching the fireflies. He said the silence here was alive and full of expectations. He asked me directly, what was I waiting for? I tried to lie, saying my life was complete, but he saw right through me. He told me I was simply waiting for permission to breathe again, even though the door to my cage had always been open. My heart beat so hard it felt as though the rhythm was shaking the very walls of my house. Saturday turned out to be even hotter. In the pool, which we hadn't used in years, Ethan looked at me as if I were a statue from an ancient myth coming to life before his eyes. He said beauty was a light from within, and that it blazed inside me even though I tried to cover it with a heavy shroud. His accidental touch under the water sent an electric charge through me, and my walls began to crumble. On Sunday, the storm arrived. Thunder shook the foundation, the power went out, and we were left by candlelight with an old photo album. Ethan pointed to my wedding photo and spoke the truth I had been afraid to admit. I had been terrified and looking for an exit even then, choosing safety over passion. In the dim light, he covered my hand with his, and for the first time in 30 years I felt needed, not as a function but as a person. On Monday morning when Rachel arrived, Ethan hugged me goodbye and made me promise to buy canvases and paints. He asked me to stop being transparent. When the car disappeared around the bend, the silence in the house changed. It was the silence before an explosion. I didn't go to wash the dishes. I went up to the attic, found my easel, and carried it into the center of the living room. I laid my old sketches out on that same perfect dining table. When Arthur called and habitually asked me to prepare something light for dinner, I told him I was going to the ocean for a week, alone. I told him I wanted to remember what my own voice sounded like. I am 52 years old, and I have only just been born. We don't choose who wakes us up, but we do choose to keep sleeping or to open our eyes. I chose life.